been observing, you've checked things out. I want you to start thinking about where you kind of like preference-wise. Like, I'm very much a middle school leader. Like, my mindset thinks middle school, stupid, crazy food games, messy. I think that way. Some of you, John, who does a lot, he is the person who does all of our services, like putting all that stuff into the service orders into the app, and if you're new, we'll talk to you about that. But he's kind of the person that has taken some of the stuff that I don't do well, and he does them well. So that way, when you hop into the app and you can see, oh, we're doing this at this time, and here's some questions, and that's all because John's been helping me become better. But he is very much a high school guy. He thinks like high school, and he likes having somewhat intelligent conversations with them, getting a little bit deeper about life and where they're going to go and all that good stuff. And I'm still just, let's just get messy and dirty. So, and maybe God has just geared us that way to complement what he's doing. But anyways, I just want to tell you a little bit about the vision of what we're doing as a church, and then the vision of who we are as a student ministry. And it ultimately goes back to one simple concept of what are we preparing this next generation for? I left owning a restaurant to jump back into ministry where I was trained in college to do ministry work. I got out of it because I was burned out. I was worn out. Told God, I'm done with this. And God said, okay, so why don't you go start your own business, because that's really slow life pace. Started working with Greg here at the church just as a volunteer on Wednesdays, and we started the conversation, we started meeting, and he's like, are you ready to get back into ministry? And I'm like, I don't know. He came to me one Thursday night and said, I want you to seriously consider this. It was after work, 9 o'clock on a Thursday night, and he said, I want you to consider coming on staff. And I said, dude, I'm going to have to pray about it. And next day at work, some guys walked into my restaurant and said, are you willing to sell this place? And I said, yes, I am now. So that was my God experience of, and Mary Joyce all along was like, when I told her this and said, okay, I think I'm ready to get back in, and she's like, it's about time. She had been ready, God had been working in her life, and she was ready to jump back into it, but I was scared because I had some scars that were still hurting at some points. But I did that simply because I felt like God was moving in a way that I wanted to be part of, and in my weird middle school mindset, was using my crazy mind to help students in their walk with Jesus. And ultimately, that's what it's about. You've heard me say it out there, or maybe you haven't. I want to see these students do 10 times more than what we as leaders could do because of where they're at, their energy, their passions. I want them to be the church to a generation that needs to see the church. And I want to see them and their love for Jesus go out. And I want to, honestly, my prayer is that this Dayton community would just be touched because of what we're doing here. The hours, the service, the love that we have, and what we pour into these students is what it's all about. Ultimately, I want to see a student graduate from high school with tangible skills to be a small group leader, to be in the band, to work in the booth, whatever it is, so that they can go to another church somewhere and be like, I've done this before, I've got a place to connect, and I can serve the local body wherever I'm at. Ultimately, yes, I'd like to have a couple of them stay here and take my place at some point, but I know that God is bigger and he's got a plan for that. That's ultimately what it's all about. So as you think about, as we talk about expectations here in a few minutes, keep that in mind. And I know of all the ministries in the church, this is by far the most time intensive. It's the most draining at times, mentally and spiritually. But I also think that this is the most rewarding place to be in the church, because when a student finally gets it and they're like, oh, this is what Jesus wants me to do, then it's like, whoa, the light goes on and everything. It's the most fulfilling at times too. So it is a lot of work, it is tough. Dealing with that call at midnight and I'm on the brink of, I just want to end it, or I'm done with my family, I want to move out, I want to run away, or this, that, or the other. Those are tough times, but it is cool to see that when students are like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this career-wise, or I'm thinking about going into ministry, or some of those things. Then it's the high side. So you have a high of highs and the lowest of lows, but God is at work. And I will say, over the 5 years that I've been here on staff, that we've seen God work in so many students' lives, that's kind of the cool part. That's my selling point to you, to an extent, that God is at work and He's doing an awesome ministry with these kids. And it's not simply because of what Wade's doing or what Mary Joyce is doing. It's simply because there are small group leaders who are investing in the lives of these kids. We can't do it alone. Thank God, because He didn't design it that way, and I don't want to try to do it that way. I don't want it to be the Climby show or anything like that. But I honestly believe that the small group leaders, and honestly the data and the research is showing that these kids are looking for their small group leader to be the investors in their lives. And we'll talk about the survey results in just a few minutes, but we'll get to that in a few. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to open this up. And we're just going to go through it. Because honestly, I believe that God wants to raise up a generation. I'm still not set on that He's done working. And if we can, by our efforts, see one kid or his life go from eternity elsewhere to eternity with God, ultimately that's what it's all about. And when we see students who profess that prayer for the first time, get baptized, this, that, or the other, it's so worth it. So, and I get to, honestly, that's one of my perks is when a kid says, hey, you know what, I'm being all in for Jesus and I'm getting baptized and I'm telling the world that, it's like, yes. And some of you will have the opportunity to participate in some of those as well when you get to hold their head under for 3 seconds or something, or longer. But just know that. A little bit in the center of the brochure, we meet Sunday mornings, 9:30 a.m. in this room with the middle schoolers. Sunday night, both middle school and high school, as you may know. A couple years ago, last year, I don't know when it was, I cut the high school class because I didn't feel like it was fulfilling the gear of helping students work out their faith, according to James, of doing their faith, not just hearing their faith. So I'm really pushing our students in high school to serve somewhere. Go put it into action and let God stretch you. I just met with a soon-to-be freshman in the youth room, and I told him, go find a place to serve where you're uncomfortable, where God can stretch you so that in 4 years you're going to look back and be like, God really worked in my life. I'm like, not to say that serving orange juice is a bad thing, but find a place where God's going to stretch you and God's going to use you. Because I had a conversation with a college student this past week who came up through the ministry, and we were talking about another girl that she doesn't really know. And she's like, this girl came up to me and said, do you remember when we were going to Kings Island and you sat beside me on the bus? She's like, I was a senior, this girl was a 7th grader. She's like, I can barely even remember who she is. But she remembers some of the conversations and some of the things that we talked about on that bus ride. And your impact to these kids, they look up to you, and our high schoolers, they have an air of just being cool because they're in high school, not because they wear the right clothes. And the younger kids are looking up to them. So I want our high schoolers to really be all God can use them to be. So that's why there's nothing in the mornings for high schoolers. And honestly, I want to keep that going. I want them to work out their faith. And then you can see sometimes that we normally don't meet. But I really want to go to the right side of the page, the qualifications and the expectations, because this is key. And John, a few weeks ago, did a survey with all the students on Sunday night, and he did it last week, and he added them in. And a little bit of this data that he asked those students, and it was all anonymous, like, just answer these questions. And what the students are asking for is what we're asking you guys to be as a leader. So, a growing relationship with Jesus. I'm in the orange box under qualification. A growing relationship with Jesus. That is getting into the Word on a regular basis. demonstrating a passion for students. If you hate students or you can't stand it, probably not the best place to serve. Right now we do not have a family ministry agreement, but Charlene and I have been in the process of working on that. It's basically saying, hey, you're not going to post stupid stuff on the internet, and you're not going to put students in harm's way. So, when you think about growing a student relationally in their walk with Jesus, you're not going to put things that are going to cause them to stumble in that way. You get plastered at a party, probably not the best thing to post. So, but we have to sometimes help people understand, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't post that. That stuff. And then we do ask you to link arms with us and be a member of the church, because we want to just know that we're tracking the same way, we're going the same way, all that good stuff. Expectations, here's where it gets, oh my word, you want me to do this, that, and the other? Yes. To be attending a church service out there with Greg and all his wisdom teaching us. And then be here weekly. And when I say FSM weekly, that if you're middle school, right now, I'm asking you to be there Sunday mornings and Sunday nights. And I know that's a tough time commitment. But those middle schoolers need that rock. They need that person to say, this person I can trust, I can be there with them. Sunday nights, it's a little bit more open, it's a little bit more relaxed, but having those small group times, John's really been trying to push that. As high schoolers, you've got 30 minutes of small group time to build that relationship and talk about some of those things. We're going to adjust some of the small group times for the middle school, because we know that middle school boys, their attention span's about 30 seconds, so keeping them in a conversation for 30 minutes is a little bit tough. But that's why they meet in the gym, so that they have some extra runaround time at the end of that 20-minute mark. They go, brain dump. Thank you. No problem. But being here weekly, and that's tough sometimes. And I know I gave up NFL football on Sunday nights because I knew that my mind and my heart needed to be dedicated to this. So, oh well, I've got it. And maybe it's because my Dolphins stink, so it doesn't worth watching them anyways. But kind of giving up some of those things, sacrificing some of those things, so that you can be that regular person in that kid's life. Engaging and facilitating discussion in your small group. John has done a great job, because I struggled with getting questions and stuff out to leaders, to put it all on this app. It's a services app that is free, that you can all download and you can all jump into this. But it gives the order of service of what we're doing, and then somewhere on there, I'm struggling. I'm going back to June, I don't know why. Thank you. But you can get questions and all that stuff. We are going to be adding another app, which I hope your phone can handle it. It's called the Lead Small app, and you will be able to have your group with every student in your group, all the contact information, phone numbers, birthdays, parents' names, guardian, this, that, and the other, so that if there's an issue, if Susie's, hey, you know what, I'm thinking about ending my life, you've got their contact info to say, hey, Mom, you need to go to Susie's room. You need to talk to your kid. Or, hey, she just told me that she wants to go into ministry or something like that. I just want to tell you, Mom, you're doing a great job. Keep it up. But here's what Susie's wanting to do. So that you have contact with parents, you have contact with the students, and you can take prayer requests in there, and you can log it all into your phone and say, oh, Susie's thinking about going into ministry. We'll keep that on our prayer list over the next few months. Or, I've got this exam. Boom, you can put it in there, and now you've got it during the week to track with. Or to send them a text and say, hey, how'd that exam go, type of thing. So, but be able to just lead those conversations. And I would encourage you with that. I'm pretty relaxed, loose, free for the most part. It's when I get in front of adults that I get a little, but as you're getting to know these students, be willing to be stretched. I've been telling our students over the past probably month, let God stretch you. Same thing for you guys. Let God stretch you in new ways. Let Him use you, and I tell you what, you will not regret it. But when you're in those small group discussions, yeah, I will say use discernment. If they're asking some tough questions, don't be like, well, use discernment and where they're at age level wise. But be willing to let God use you and your story to lead them. Walk through an entire season of student ministry. I'm asking for a 1-year commitment to start in August and to end in July. That's what I'm asking for, that you would say, hey, I'm going to commit to this for the next year. I'm giving up Sunday nights and NFL Sunday night football and this, that, and the other, so that these kids can be impacted because they want that relationship, whatever that looks like. And I will give you some dates that are coming up that as much as possible to plan on being there for these events. But we'll get to that in a second. Connect with your students on a regular basis outside of church. That's where I will say phones are the best invention ever, because students are text junkies. So sending them texts, hey, I just read this passage, what do you think of it? Read it with me. Or we're going to our group is going to start a small group Bible study. Let's do it together. Or, how was your week? How was that test? How was that bully? I know you've been dealing with stress or anxiety. All of those things, connecting with them outside of the group. And the goal is that each leader will have 5 students. That's what I'm trying to, John and I are working our best to try to give you 5 students that you oversee and say, these are my 5 girls, and we're gonna go to Steak and Shake Sunday after church. And then mom and dad's gonna come pick them up at 2 o'clock or whatever it is. Connect with them, because that's what they're longing for, that's what they're asking for. Whatever that looks like, and you can be creative. We will do a planning session next month where I'm gonna have each small group come up with their things for the next couple months. We are working on a big group activity in November, and December is kind of a slower month, but like October, September months, you guys are doing stuff with your group, and hey, we're gonna go play disc golf. Or one of the things that came up, a couple of us, 10 of us, went and saw Aladdin at the Green on a Wednesday, and it was $5 a ticket. And a couple of students said, we should do this with our small group. $5 Wednesdays, like we can all afford that. I'm like, okay, tell your small group leader that. You know, a simple thing, hey, we're meeting at 7 o'clock, it's $5, I'll pre-purchase the tickets, who's gonna be there, type of thing. So an easy, fun thing, and right now there's a bunch of movies to see, so, of which we probably won't see them, but wait till video. But that's some of those easy things you can do. If you struggle with that or ideas for that, talk to other leaders. Talk to some of these leaders who have been here a few years and be like, oh yeah, with my group we did this or we did that, so that's that. And then be available to walk through those difficult issues with them. They all struggle. This day and age students all struggle. They may come in with the perfect face on, but we know behind that mask, there's some questions that they're dealing with. A lot of parents don't want to face the fact that they're struggling with their faith and their identity. That's probably one of the biggest things that we've dealt with this past year is kids being like, I'm not sure of who I am. I don't know who I am. And they're stressed about it, and anxiety's creeping in. But identity is that big word that you guys can have the opportunity to answer in their lives. You have been born of Jesus, and He has created you to be you. So just a simple answer, just a simple thing that you can connect with them, but be willing to say, hey, you know what? If we need to talk about it, let's talk about it. So that's a little bit of that. So you can look through all of this. Some of you have done background checks, and some of you I have not sent stuff to. I will continue to follow up with that, but that's a big part of it. And then this survey. So John did a survey, and one of the questions he asked was, in your small group and your leader, what kind of influence do you think that they have? And a majority of our students rated our small group leaders on a 1 to 5 scale as being the quality of your small group, high 3 and 4. Like, we value that. And then on the leader itself, they put some good high marks of 4s and 5s. Like, there's some, hey, you know what? We've got our leaders, and we value our leaders. I honestly believe parents are the most influential person in a kid's life. I will say that because research is showing that. And I joke because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So our kids are probably going to turn out similar to us for the most part, statistically speaking. But we know that kids need other influences in their life. I needed it in my life when I was in high school. I needed somebody other than my parents, who there was friction with at times, that I needed somebody that I could go to and be like, what am I gonna do? When do I get to move out when I'm 18? And that person calmed me down. Okay, let's think about this. Okay, fine. And led me back to, what does Jesus want you to do? What does Jesus want you to do? Honor my parents. Okay, honor your parents. Yes, sir. You guys have that opportunity to guide them in what Scripture says. Are you comfortable in seeking the advice from leaders? Yes. Do you feel like your leaders try to know more about you? Yes. Is there regular contact? Not so much. And that's where we really want to up the game this next year, to say that leaders, your students feel like at times they talk to me too much. I don't know that that's possible because they are very relational and all that good stuff. But from a trust standpoint, how important is it that your leader builds a relationship with you outside of your group? On a 1 to 5 scale, resounding 5. Wow. Resounding. Outside of youth group activities, we want that relationship. So that's why when I'm saying all this, that goes back to, and John actually allowed them to put things that they would like to do. The main one, very expensive, get coffee and hang out and talk. So if there is financial issue and you're like, things are tight, talk to me and I will get you a card and be like, here, splurge, go to Winans. Because I don't want that to deter you from doing ministry. If that's the only thing hanging up, let me know and I will talk to some people and we will get you gift cards to do some stuff. Baking was another thing, and some of the middle school girls, they've done baking in here the past couple years, come in or after church on Sunday and they bake stuff and then we eat it for youth group on Sunday night. Hey, I just want you to know, the kids in this society, phones are awesome and I love it, but here's where phones are creating isolation and anxiety, is that a lot of students are sitting in their room by themselves on their phone, posting to social media, and very empty on the inside. They're very lonely, and they need somebody to believe in them. Cody and I were just talking about a young man who's about to be a freshman who could easily just slide out of the student ministry. Nobody would even miss him, other than the fact that we need somebody to just reach out to him and say, hey dude, let's go play basketball. Or bring your friends, come to the church, we'll play basketball together. Some simple things like that. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on. For calendar stuff, we've got some things coming up. August, you can go in there now if you need to go there. August 2nd and 3rd, we do a boot camp. It's for all of our incoming 6th graders. I just want you to know we have the possibility of 20 to 25 6th graders that will be joining our group in a few weeks. So, praise Jesus, but I'm shaking a little bit. Honestly, this is the one and only year that all 3 of my kids are going to be in the student ministry together. So,
how does that make you feel?
I don't know. I'm a little nervous.
Robbie's been in it for like 3 years.
Yeah, that's true. That's maybe part of the problem. Feels like he owns the place. But we do a boot camp every year. It's going to be August 2nd and 3rd. It's a Friday night, 5 to 9, and then Saturday, 9 to noon. If you, especially middle school leaders, could be a part of that, we're going to be talking about, I'm going to be pushing parents, and I know this is a scary word, to let go of their kids. To send their kids off to the church and church activities and to let them go and let God stretch them. Because it's a big, scary time, and not only is it scary for our middle schoolers, it's also scary for the parents to be like, this kid's entering a new world, and their wings are going to start opening up, and we want God to be able to encourage that activity. But that is on the 2nd and 3rd. If you can be a part of that, that would be great. It's an opportunity for parents to meet you guys as small group leaders and just see what's going on with the student ministry. So that's going on. August 7th, a few days after that, is our Family Ministries kickoff. This is for all of family ministry from nursery up through high school. And we're asking that every leader be a part of that. It's basically a kickoff. It's from 7 to 8:30. And we're going to be given vision and we're going to be meeting as small groups and talking about upcoming things that are going on. Some of that training that night will be talking about this next year. I don't want you to feel like, as a potential small group leader, like, okay, he's going to put me with these 5 girls and just set me free. We are intentionally planning training this next year from something that the theme is, it's personal. Charlene's using it next door with kids leaders. I'm going to use it with all y'all. And it's all about, it's personal. And meaning, it's personal to you because it's personal to me because it's personal to God. That personal relationship of saying, you know what, I want to be that influence in a kid's life because they are made in the image of God, and I want that person, in my kind of recollection of it, I want that person standing next to me one day in heaven. So that's why it's personal, because there's lives at stake and there's lives on the line. So that is, we're going to be doing training throughout the year. We in the past have done potlucks. I'm kind of really tracking with doing it second service, of asking you guys to sacrifice the service to be in here, but we've got childcare. Other than the music, we can knock out, get together for an hour. Honestly, I would like us to spend some of this time various times praying, or other times splitting into groups and saying, high schoolers, you're over there, middle schoolers, let's talk middle school stuff and what are we seeing, what are the trends, and really trying to do that. So I don't know what your thoughts are on meeting during second service, but I really like this this opportunity. One of the things that I'm really pushing for us as a group is that we are a team, and trying to figure out how to bring us together as a team a little bit more as we continue to grow numerically. But I really want us to be open and honest with each other, and helping each other, encouraging each other outside of here, but also being willing to say, hey, my student needs this from you as a leader, or hey, one of your students came to me and they don't feel like that they're connecting with you. How can we work on something? I want us to be open and honest with each other so that we're working together. Or I heard this rumor about your student. You might kind of keep an eye on it and not feeling like, well, if I share something with them, they're going to bite my head off, or they might not want to hear this. But we're working together as a team so that these kids are empowered, that these kids are developed, that these kids are trained in the way they should be trained. So that's some of this. We are, well, I won't go there. So, as I said, the goal is to try to get every leader to have 5 students. For middle school, we're getting rid of these white tables. I've got a few high schoolers that are going to come in and be table leaders with you, and we're going to go back to a couple years ago, or last year, we had the silver round tables. We're going to go back to round tables so that the goal is only 8 people will be able to sit around that table, and we're going to squeeze them in here as best we can. And with this group of 6th graders coming in, we're going to kind of try to track and figure out where things need to be. So here's what I want you to do. If you are thinking, hey, I'm going to be middle school, if my brain sets that way, or I'm going to kind of pick on Mark and Michelle Wright. I asked Michelle a little bit over a year ago, said, hey Michelle, would you be willing to jump into middle school? Mark's going into high school, he's going to work with high school boys, but would you be willing to work with the 6th and 7th grade girls with Sarah and kind of tag team that? And she's like, but she said, yes, I'll do it. And she has tracked with those girls and gone through that year of ministry with them. And a couple months ago, I had asked her about, are you thinking transition? Jump into high school and be with your husband, or this, that? And she said, I've really kind of made a good connection with those girls. And from what I understand, she's thinking, I'm going to stay there with those girls. I say that, sometimes God is like, hey, why don't you jump in? But if you're thinking middle school right now, here's what I need you to do for me. Because for our middle school boot camp, we're going to be giving bios to all the parents of all the small group leaders in middle school, so that parents can be like, oh, here is Chloe, and here's her phone number, and this is a little bit about Chloe, so I can have some understanding of who this lady is who's working with my kid is, so that she just like some person out in space that I don't know, picture or face. So if you're in middle school, if you're thinking middle school, guy or girl, I need you to answer 3 questions for me. What's the first one?
What you like to do in your free time?
Free time.
What do you like to do in your free time? What's the second one?
You didn't say.
He
Yeah,
did.
how
He
is
said,
God
how
working
God
in
is
my
working in my
life right
life right now.
How is God working in your life right now?
I didn't hear it. I was focused on them.
And the third one? What's your favorite food? So we are going to type these up. Actually, I'll be honest. Bethany, my admin, is going to type these up, and we're going to put it in our bio. With this is Chloe, this is Cody, this is, and your 3 answers will be in there. Simply just for an opportunity for parents who are nervous about sending their kids off to some crazy student ministry that they'll have a connection point. So if you could answer those sooner than later and then email them or text them to me, that would be greatly appreciated so that your pretty little face and name can be put in that
You want
bio
them
as
to
well.
send you a photo, or are you just gonna steal one from
I was just
Facebook?
gonna, yeah, that's all I was gonna do. I was gonna just stalk them on Facebook.
Awkward picture? I'll send you.
I want to send him a photo unless you want him to steal one.
Prior,
Yeah, I wanna-
did you have our little
I don't know people.
financial peace photo?
Yeah.
Yes. From
I do
Jonathan.
have most of you guys.
Yeah,
If you want me to snap a photo, I can even do it with my phone too. If you want one that looks
normal.
decent and not, yeah, just one of those.
No, I would've-
Not a strange one that I'll choose.
He like finds
Yeah.
their
We don't want to
middle
scare the
school
parents. Right?
One of the things that we are going to be pushing with middle schoolers is 3 goals this next year: personal Bible study, invest and invite, and learning to serve. So those are kind of 3 things that I'm going to push at boot camp and probably going to push throughout the year. I always am encouraging students to read their Bibles. Many times if we're doing, like tonight we're hitting 1 Timothy chapter 6, I'll usually push them, hey, this is 6 chapters in this book, take a chapter a night. Get them into the word. I really want them to learn how to dive into that. And you guys can even do that in your small groups as you're working through things and, hey, we just read about 1 Timothy 6, and then jump into it. And with John pushing things out a lot sooner, that week up, maybe that becomes your personal Bible study to say, hey, you know what, Sunday night we're doing 1 Timothy chapter 6. I'm going to read chapter 5 as well, and I'm going to read chapter 6, and I'm going to try to find where the Holy Spirit's teaching me as well, and then you can use that with your group. So some of those things that are up and coming. So